Hey everybody, I'm Christy Jordan and I'm in the woods. I want to talk with you a little bit today. So I'm taking a moment on this very special day to spend just a few minutes with you going over our notes again. I don't have a tripod with me, so this is handheld. Forgive the shakiness. I will try to keep it to a minimum. Today in our readings, we talked about the Shema. And I want to expand on that and tell you a little more about some of the later history of the Shema, a very special story. But first, I want to remind us that we're in Deuteronomy. This is kind of Moses' farewell letter to everyone. And so he knows he's not going to be here much longer. He wants to reiterate, underline, highlight, bold their history as a people and all that the Father has told them and taught them. And so he's reiterating the commandments. A lot of times, the Shema begins at Deuteronomy 6:4. And we need to be very mindful of the context. This is a continuation of the other chapters of Deuteronomy, the previous chapters. A lot of times we look at a new chapter as a new thought or a new setting. And that's a mistake. And that causes us to take things out of context and to lose the meaning of what's being said here. So in Deuteronomy 5, Moses has just finished quoting the Father, reiterating the Ten Commandments. And so then we move to Deuteronomy 6. And he says, now this is the commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God, now I'm quoting ESV, that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land that you are about to go over, going over to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, that you and your son and your son's son, by keeping all of these statutes and his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, that your days may be long. These commandments are for our benefit. Now, what are these commandments? Go back to Deuteronomy 5. It's what we think of as the Big Ten today. That your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord your God of your fathers has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, of course, we also know this is the all caps Lord. This is one of the nearly 7,000 occurrences in the Bible where the Father had his personal name, but translators removed it and replaced it with an all caps Lord. And then we go to Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets before your eyes. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Now again, what are we referring to? The Ten Commandments. But Deuteronomy 6:4 is what's been known as the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. What does this look like? This looks like obedience. This looks like us obeying the Ten Commandments. This looks like us following them, living by them, making them this place of importance in our lives where we teach them diligently to our children, talk of them when we sit in our house and when we walk by the way and when we lie down and when we rise. This looks like obedience. Loving the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. It looks like obedience. Okay? So I want to tell you a story about the Shema. Now this came to be known as the Shema because Hear, O Israel in Hebrew is Shema, Israel. Shema means more than just listen. It's been translated as Hear, O Israel. But it means more than just to hear. It means to hear and to do. Okay, as I was saying, we tend to simplify things. And so we take Shema and we translate it as just listen, just hear. Okay, just hear the commandments, you're good. These days, we kind of look for what is the least we can do. I used a quote in one of my notes that said, the church used to say, what must I do to be saved? And these days we say, what can I do and still be saved? And that's tragic. So I want us to understand that Shema means to hear and do. And so I want to tell you a story about something that happened during Nazi Germany. And I've read several different accounts of this story. One of the accounts even listed the name of the man who went about, and this story is actually about. So research it for yourself. I think it's a very moving story, and I certainly absolutely believe it to be true. But you can look into it yourself. So during Nazi Germany, of course, the Germans were known as Christians. And so I think it's important to know that this was done in that name. Of course, it was not sanctioned by the Father. Anyone reading the Bible for 5 minutes can tell that. But it was done in that name. And so I think we need to be sensitive to that. So the Nazis were rounding up all the Jews, and they were putting them in concentration camps, and they were killing them. They were doing far worse things than even killing them. And as many people as possible, when they realized what were happening, the true believers, the followers of our Messiah, they would take these children and they would try to save them. And they would put them in orphanages. There were all these orphanages that were run by nuns. And so they would take these children and they would hide them in these orphanages. And in order to hide them there, they explained to the children, you can't let anyone know you're a Jew. You have to hide that you're a Jew. And they wouldn't even put them on the rolls as being of Jewish ancestry. They would make up different names for them. They would make up Christian names for them. And they would hide them in here, and they were taught at all costs to not let on that they were Jews. And many of the nuns who worked there didn't even know which children among them were Jews, and they didn't want to know because they wanted to protect these children at all costs. So the war finally ends, and there are a lot of people who understand and know that these Jewish children are hidden in these orphanages, and they want to try to reunite as many as possible with whatever living family they may have. And so they go around to these orphanages to try to find these children, and they can't figure out which ones are the Jews because the children have had it ingrained in them. Your life, your survival depends on not letting anyone know who you really are. Don't let them. And they knew that people would try to trick them and try to get this information out of them. And so the children knew, but their friends didn't know, and the nuns didn't know. And it had been so ingrained that they weren't going to let on. So this man got an idea. Of course, he's a Jew, so he knows about the history of the Shema. Well, it turns out, teach them diligently to your children. One of the ways that they had done that is they would sing the Shema. Jewish mothers would sing the Shema to their kids when they went to bed at night. And so this man goes in an orphanage and he says, just let me go in the room with the children. And he goes in the room with the children and he looks around and you can't tell Jew from Gentile at this point. And he starts singing the Shema. And these children had last heard this song sang by their mothers when they put them to bed at night. And for some, it had been years since they had heard their mother's voice. But they remembered her when they heard this song. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And the children started crying. All the Jewish children started crying. And through the Shema, they were found. Something that in our Western minds, it's a commandment that we may dismiss as being trivial or not that important. But these people at that time, they knew the scriptures and they obeyed the commandments. And in doing so, their descendants, their whole line of descendancy, their children were preserved. Shema doesn't just mean to hear. It means to hear and do. And we will never know all the blessings of obeying our Father. But we know that when our Father speaks, it is important. And so I wanted to share with you that expansion on the history of the Shema. Its history is still continuing today. If you want to know a little more about it, make sure you read my post, Did Messiah Replace the Ten Commandments with Just Two? I'll put that down here. I hope y'all have a wonderful day today. I am going to go spend the day with my family and with the Word, and we will see you soon. I love y'all. Bye.